Hello and welcome back to Vet Talks. I wanted to talk a little bit about seeking help and why would you seek help? Um, Majority of my career, I already had finished all my deployments. I had, you know, I was done with. If I had moved past all that trauma or whatever the things that basically that I deal with now, why seek help? I was good. It wasn't until I was talking about when you're going to the med board, because I was med boarded twice. First med board was because I had surgery on my shoulder, and at that point they were like, your sugars are a little elevated. I was pre-diabetic, and went to the surgery, and then I went to seek help for something else. I forgot what it was, but they were like, wait a minute, what's this in your record that you were pre-diabetic? And they had put me on metformin for it. So I didn't think anything of it, but they're like, "Oh no, 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 no! You can't be in the army and be a diabetic because we can't put you we can't put you in a hostile environment where if your sugars were too low, with diabetes, if your sugars go too low, there's a possibility you can pass out or there's you need to seek medical aid. So that was like okay, so like well we're gonna have to put you to the med board. Okay, I don't know what that entails, but sure, So they send you to the VA, and it was at that point that they had the because you put down all your things that they tell you to think about it from your head to your toe, any ailments, any injuries, things that basically what was it that changed between when you were before you joined the army to after you joined the army. Tell me some things that are different. Okay, um, I definitely put PTSD because I was suffering. I knew I had the flashbacks. I was having the nightmares. I was having all these other um, indicators that I was struggling with something. I didn't want to put a label on it, but the label is PTSD. So I put under PTSD, and then that's where they send you to this person at the VA, and he's just writing down what he thinks. And then it was at that point, and I've never been one to uh, being able to express emotion in the sense of being able to cry. It wasn't happening. Even when I got pulled out of a deployment in 2012. I was on an SFAT mission, and I got pulled out because I got word that my dad was on his deathbed, and they wanted me to come back. They wanted me to be there with him, and I was with him. And I remember I kept telling my dad, you can't leave, you can't leave, because you know it, I wasn't I never got to spend that time with him, you know, and unfortunately my dad passed away, and even at even at that point, even at that funeral, wasn't able to express emotion. I just wasn't able to cry, and I kept thinking about what's wrong with me. Why am I not able to express? What? This is my dad, who I love dearly. Why am I not able to cry? And there was a guy I was looking at one video, it was a YouTube video, and they were talking about. There was a guy that used to be a Marine, and he got out, and then he pursued becoming therapist, basically dealing with specifically with PTSD. And he mentioned a word, and I almost I caught when he said it. He says they are now identifying the possibility of calling this moral damage. Moral damage. And I thought to myself, that's what it is. My morals have been damaged, and that's why I wasn't able to express a lot of emotion, and that's why I was so cold to people. That's why I was just so rough and tough, and it made me callous. I had built up this callous, and it was part of that prevented me from allowing myself to even recognize that the damage that was done, that I wouldn't, when I would reflect on my past, you know, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that incident. Oh, I remember that, and you know, there's these different things that I wouldn't reflect on it. You know, I wouldn't reflect on it, and so I wouldn't let it bother me. And when this guy, when this at the VA, when he said something, I forgot what it was, but it was at that moment, I was like, I let it go, and I realized that there was something that I had been holding in so deep that was finally, it welled up to the surface. And that's where he said I need to get therapy. So I went to the therapist and I talked about how I didn't give them, I didn't open up again. I clammed up like a shell. They're not going to get anything out of me. You know, I'm Mr., you know, whatever, tough guy. I ain't going to show no emotions, you know. And so I wasn't allowing myself to be helped properly. And even when I went through rehabs, they kept telling me, we want to put you in men's trauma. We want to put you around other veterans and other people that you know, it could be firemen or whatever, but specifically men's trauma. And I said, heck no, I don't want to be around other veterans and stuff like that, because you feed off of their, when they say something, when they have an experience and they talk about it, you feed off of it. You sympathize with what they're being, you know, what they're going through, and it causes you to become, you know, you take their anger and it makes you angry. I remember my wife told me, I don't think this therapy is working for you, because you're getting worse. Instead of getting better, you're getting worse as you go through this therapy. And because it brings up, you're peeling away the scabs of time, and you're allowing yourself to be exposed. And when you do that, there's stuff in there that just, it's raw, it's hard to deal with. It's stuff that we normally hide. We're not used to being exposed that way. You know, I remember hearing this rumor. It was a rumor that in basic training, at some point, they came out with stress cards. If the drill sergeants were talk to you too harsh, or you're just, you know, because I talked about, like, when I was in basic training, there was a buddy of mine. He was dealing with the separation. It was hard for him to deal with the separation of his family, and he ended up having to leave. But you know, it was this idea that there was a stress card for whatever reason. It could be anything, but you know, you pull out the stress card, and it's basically, hey, look, you know what? I'm having a hard time right now. It could be something personal. Maybe you got some bad news back home, but you're having a hard time right now with this environment. And a lot of people, I would ask about it. Was that true? And we would joke about it. Oh, I can't believe that. You know that. You know, when we went to basic training, you're supposed to be stressed. You know, and so, you know, as time progresses, who knows what the way it'll be in the future. You know, there literally may be times where they talk a lot about. Maybe they're going to counsel you. You know, as you go through certain events or, you know, deployments, and they're going to dedicate more time to talking about stuff that we never talked about. We never had this, you know, because I talk about when you come back from deployment, you're never allowed to revert back to who you were. You're in combat mode. They're okay with that, but they never allow you to revert back to where you were. Back to this being med boarded for diabetes. They said, well, you don't qualify to be medically retired. Okay. Well, the only thing we can do for you is we can just give you a little severance package, and you don't get no more benefits or nothing. You know, and at this point, I'm already at like 18 years. I thought it was wasn't there like supposed to be like some grace period where they can't get rid of you? You're in the Goldilocks zone where you can finish out. It was weird. I was like, all this rumors of stuff we used to believe was all of a sudden it was evaporating. Like, no, that's not true. They can get rid of you at any time. So I fought it. I was like, okay, there was nothing I can do to qualify to get medically retired. But there was one rule. If your commander signed off on it, and if your doctor signed off on it and said that you can at least finish out your job that you're doing here, because I am in a, we don't deploy. If we go to the field, it's always, we stay in air conditioned rooms, and there's always I can get to a hospital if need be. So I went through the process of getting the brigade commanders sign off on it and the doctors sign off on it, and I said, okay, you can get to that. You can get to your retirement, 20 years. You can get there. You went through all the hurdles. Great, no problem. But remember, it was during that evaluation that at the VA, the doctor told me you need to seek help. So I followed his orders. And I went back and I said, I need to see a therapist. And then when I was going and talking to the therapist, I mentioned that I was talking to my therapist for a year. But what I didn't know and what nobody told me, if you were being seen for PTSD for 1 year and they put you on some type of medication, and within that 1 year you don't get off, like you're still needing help. I got hit with the second med board. Now we're going to med board you for PTSD. I said, well, hold on a second. I already have this pass to be able to retire. They're like, no, that's null and void. Now we're going to med board you for PTSD. So what do? Now at this point, they told me, you will qualify to get medically retired. You'll qualify this time. But that's not what I wanted. My goal was to hit that 20-year mark. I didn't want to just, I'm so close to the goal line, the finish line. I didn't want to just stop. So then I had to fight again. And fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Till I was able to get to that finish line. I was able to hit the 20-year mark with 10 days to spare. I hit the 20-year mark. They medically retired me 10 days afterwards. And that's because I fought a lot to get there. The way they treat veterans, the way they treat soldiers, it's not right. And that's why, like even now, I signed up. I was part of the VFW. I signed up. I wanted to help out. And even there, I will, if somebody, because they're still doing it now. They're still doing this medical chapters. They're doing, because the Army's trying to downsize, and when they're trying to downsize, they're looking for any little excuse to downsize you, and a lot of it is with PTSD. They will use that as a tool to get rid of you, and that's not right. You're supposed to help us out. You're not supposed to just throw us to the wayside. It's no wonder you end up with so many homeless vets, because what happened to them? They got thrown to the wayside and nobody cared. Nobody, I've gone out, searching for some homeless vets before, trying to bring them clothes or whatever, food, whatever. If you need something, I'm willing to help you out, because who else is going to help them out? Who else is going to try and seek, because a lot of these, they feel abandoned. I know I felt abandoned, and I was actually allowed to finish it, but I had to fight so hard for it. It wasn't allowed. It wasn't like they said, oh yeah, no problem. You can, no. I had to fight tooth and nail just to get to my goal. And it made me feel like crap that the Army just, when they look at you like you're no longer a benefit, then they want to toss you away. Well, we'll talk more about that later. I'll talk to y'all later.